Let the torch of freedom burn.
Well, happy Monday to you, friends. Yes, let the torch of freedom burn. My name is Rick Green. I'm a former Texas legislator and America's Constitution coach, and I am honored to be here with David Barton. He's America's premier historian. He's our founder here at WallBuilders, which is all about rebuilding the walls, just like in Nehemiah. Arise and rebuild the walls that we may no longer be a reproach. And then we're also with Tim Barton, national speaker and pastor and president of WallBuilders. Check us out at wallbuilderslive.com. That's the website where you can get archives of the program. If you've missed some shows over the last few weeks, it's also a great place to make a donation. If you want truth to be spoken, fought for, if you want truth to be expanded across our country, deeply needed in our nation right now, then a donation to WallBuilders Live helps make that happen. It helps us to get this message in the hands of as many people as we possibly can. Here's what we do here at WallBuilders. We take a biblical, historical, and constitutional perspective to whatever the hot topic of the day is. So whatever's going on in the culture, we say, okay, how does the Bible apply? What can history teach us about this? And how do we as citizens in America under a constitutional republic, how do we do this appropriately? How do we do this correctly under our Constitution? So biblical, historical, and constitutional perspective every day right here on WallBuilders Live. And we're glad you're here and a part of it. All right, David, Tim, we got Rob McCoy coming in later today for our special interview. Rob's a pastor in California, and so important to have voices of truth speaking to us right now with these echo chambers, with so much disinformation out there and distortion of what's going on. Rob's one of the guys I try to listen to his sermon every week specifically for that, for truth. He's just got great discernment and perspective on what's happening out there, and we need more, not just pastors, but people in every sphere speaking truth and helping to guide us on where we put our action when we want to be involved in the process.
Yeah, we really saw that through the last election cycle, the last political combat that went on was, we certainly saw on the left things that we thought were out of bounds on truth. But I got to say, I also saw a lot of stuff on the right that I think was out of bounds on truth. And it really got to the point where people were judging truth by outcome. Well, it didn't turn out my way, so the other side lied about it. And that's not necessarily the case. Quite frankly, there were so many Christians praying before the election, praying, and Jesus told us how to pray. He said, here, what we call the Lord's Prayer, model your prayer after this, and part of it is, thy kingdom come, thy will be done. And that prayer was being prayed all over the nation. So here's my question. We prayed that prayer, and the outcome wasn't what we wanted. So does that mean God didn't answer our prayer, or that we missed the mark on how to interpret that prayer? Because I'll just say, how do we know that the way this turned out wasn't his kingdom come, his will be done? What we've already seen in this landslide of nearly 50 executive orders have come down, we're already seeing a big pushback from people saying, wait a minute, that wasn't what I thought was going to happen. How do we know that this isn't going to be Ezekiel 30, verse 9, where God says, I'm going to shock you out of your complacency? How do we know? So what happens is conservatives saying, well, this was all a fraud. It was all a fake because it didn't come out the way I wanted. That's not the basis of truth. You have to have actual factual basis for truth.
Well, and even speaking of truth, one of the things that was common for all of us is we were getting texts and calls on almost a daily basis. And for sure, on text, people would send us videos and, hey, watch this video. What do you think? Well, this guy just came out and he's known Trump for years, or he's part of this organization, whatever. And all these so-called conservative, Christian, whatever people were coming out and, kind of giving their prophetic take on what was going on. And some of it we were looking at going, okay, this isn't right at all. Some of what was being said to be accurate information. And so one of the things that certainly, even as we navigate going forward as Christians, is we have to be better critical thinkers and strategic thinkers. And
That's
just
right.
because we see it online doesn't mean it's true. And this is something like, how long has this been said, right? Just because it's online doesn't mean it's true. And just because someone says they're a Christian or a prophet and they post this video online doesn't mean what they're saying necessarily is true or accurate. But even now where we are, how do we navigate going forward? What is really our role as Christians? Has our job changed? Of course, we have some thoughts and opinions on that, but we also have a very good friend who is a very bold, courageous pastor who is so good at being on the front lines, taking on a stand, being a culture warrior in the best sense possible, standing up for truth and promoting God's kingdom, and that's Pastor Rob McCoy.
Rob McCoy with us when we come back. Stay with us, folks. You're listening to WallBuilders Live.
This is Tim Barton from WallBuilders with another moment from American history. The year after the American War for Independence ended, we began addressing the issue of Muslim terrorists in North Africa who were attacking American ships and killing and enslaving American seamen. Congress dispatched John Adams and Thomas Jefferson to negotiate peace, and when they asked the Muslim ambassador the reason for the unprovoked attacks, he told them that it was written in their Quran, that it was their right and duty to make war upon them whenever they could be found. 16 years of negotiations failed, and in 1801, America sent its military to crush the terrorists. When that war ended in 1805, the first American edition of the Quran was published, urging Americans to read the Quran to see for themselves that its teachings were incompatible with the safety and peace of non-Muslims. To see the first American Quran and to get more information about America's first war on Islamic terror, go to WallBuilders.com.
Welcome back to the intersection of faith and the culture. This is WallBuilders Live. Thanks for staying with us today. Rob McCoy, pastor from Thousand Oaks, California, back with us. Always good to have you, Rob. Miss you, man, and thank you for some time.
Oh, thank you, Rick. You guys bless me. I tell you, you're putting a spotlight on what we're dealing with, and you've been such an encouragement to us all. Thank you.
Well, you are an encouragement to pastors all over the country and Christians all over the country. I mean, you exemplify the Black Road Regiment from the founding era, patriot pastors that are willing to speak truths, apply the Bible to everything in life, regardless of what the government might say about it. And you have stood firm there in Thousand Oaks. So thanks for what you guys are doing at Godspeak. Y'all are setting a great example. And I know pastors and others are actually, flocking to you guys from all over that area because you have been open. You've approached this scientifically. You've approached it biblically. Just been fantastic, and I want to encourage people to watch your fireside chats and watch you on Sunday. A lot of folks don't have a church they can go to, and I tell them, watch Rob McCoy. That ought to be your Sunday morning service. What we do here at our house when we're not able to attend. So anyway, bless you, brother. Thanks for all you're doing. Let's catch up. I mean, just kind of catch me up on, first of all, your attitude and your mindset post-election, Biden inaugurated, all of those things. You had a fantastic message on this. At the point it was obvious it was inevitable. Just kind of tell us how you're approaching things now.
Well, you're referring to the message I did Sunday following the election where I talked about hopium.
Yep.
Where I combined the word hope with opium. And
I've borrowed that, by the way, and I did give you credit the first time I used it. After that, nope, it's all mine. But yeah.
Well, take it. It's all yours. You never have to give me credit. The right and the left are guilty of deception. A rumor is just a lie with legs on it. And our scriptures declare that whatever things are true, we have to be people of truth.
Amen.
And you can't forward a meme or an email or some sort of statement that you haven't tested. And we get inundated with that. And we were dealing with that during the election, that all these things were, President Trump's playing three-dimensional chess, and he's got this amazing thing, and you'll see it happen. And it just paralyzed people as opposed to participating. What they wanted is they wanted something to end up the way that they were hoping as opposed to participating in the process. And, people use it to generate traffic to their website, and it's deception.
Yep.
And we have to rise above that. And, the landscape, I have all people, some of the stuff that came across my desk, I would love if it were true. But the reality is it wasn't. I mean, I was sitting on a podcast with Charlie, and the comment was, President Trump is flying at this moment to Texas, and we were in communication with somebody who was sitting right next to the president when that came out, and we knew it wasn't true.
You mean he wasn't, at that moment, he wasn't in a helicopter about to descend with a bazooka on one shoulder and a tank on the other and save the day? That wasn't what was happening? Yeah,
it wasn't happening. And as pastors, we're left to pick up the pieces of lives that have, been inundated with hopium.
Yeah, then they crash.
Right. And that takes people and crushes them and brings discouragement.
Yep.
Discouragement is the absence of courage because you no longer believe in the process, nor do you feel like you have a voice in the process. And I say to people, yeah, look, we got ripped off in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Georgia, Nevada, Arizona. The election, just in those four counties, you look at Detroit and you look at the counties in Pennsylvania, and it was unscrupulous. It was evil. It was dirty.
Yeah.
But nobody's complaining about the election in Florida. and Florida has Dade County, and the president won by over 400,000 votes. And that's leadership. You have DeSantis who comes in and turns an entire state because they worked hard, and everybody wants it to be okay. And I've always said, Rick, that people love liberty and it's intrinsic to the human heart. But I've changed my mind on that, because when you see in the scriptures 3 to 5 million Jews enslaved crying out to God for freedom, and he sends Moses as a deliverer, and Moses confronts Pharaoh and says, "Let my people go." And Pharaoh says, "Who is God that I should obey him?" And then doubles the brick output and reduces the materials. The people complain to Moses. And what that showed me is people want liberty. They don't want it to come at a cost. They don't want to have to suffer to obtain it. And people are thinking, well, I bought a pillow from, My Pillow, and I watched Fox News. Why didn't the president win? And, you look at Lincoln's second inaugural address, where he said both people read the same scriptures and prayed to the same God, both desiring different outcomes. But he went further in that inaugural address when he said, the idea is to look at the heart of the Lord, that, what's God doing in these seasons? And what the Lord was doing in the season was simply to say, look, this is about slavery. And you think in 1860 there were 4 million slaves, and 2% of our nation's population died on a field of battle, 650,000 men, to lift that horror from the fabric of our nation. Well, God's not going to turn a blind eye to the death and destruction of 1 million babies in the womb. And we talk about Black Lives Matter. 320,000 of those million a year are Black children. And the birth rate for the Black community is flatlined because of the Holocaust of the Black community. And God's not turning a blind eye. But churches don't want to talk about abortion because it's not popular when you have an ROI, a return on investment, and you treat the church like a business model. It doesn't keep butts in the seats. But we're supposed to be the conscience of the nation. And you can't use stage, God's anger towards the death of the innocent by putting up a black tile and thinking somehow you're culturally relevant, when the reality is God this is critical to him. As God's people, we need to reevaluate what our priorities are.
Yeah.
It's not about a return on investment or, how relevant your church is or how hip you are, or how big your building is or your budgets. It boils down to what is dear to the heart of the Lord. And I'll leave you this last thought, Rick, that when Joshua confronted the commander of the Lord's army, and he said, "Are you for us or against us?" And this Christophany, this appearance of Christ in the Old Testament, the commander of the Lord's army, he said, "Neither. This isn't about me being on your side or on their side. This is about, are you on my side?" And I think as the church, we have to stop and say, Lord, what have we failed to do that is precious to you? And that has to be an awakening to the things that break the heart of the Lord, and return to that, even if it's difficult.
Yeah.
Because if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and then turn from their wicked ways, only then will he hear from heaven and heal our land. So it's time to wake up and to address these things.
And you said even if it's difficult, and that seems to be, going back to your first comments about the hopium and the almost easy way out. Everybody was kind of hoping that that the day would just suddenly get saved, and they didn't want to accept the fact that we've got a lot of hard work to do here in the coming years to save the culture, both in the church with exactly what you're talking about, and then taking those truths outside the walls of the church. So what do we say to people that both are kind of feeling this, what's the point? Nothing works. But also even those that realize, okay, the other side won because, of a lot of shenanigans, but also because they've been working hard. I mean, they have, let's face it, they've been at it for years. They've been relentless, and we haven't. So what do we do to get people to say, look, I'm going to work hard every day to serve the Lord in all these arenas, and that doesn't mean just enjoying the blessings of liberty. It includes some of the burden.
Yeah, because, this is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, and it requires participation. And the systems that were put in place to allow the opposition to steal the election in those states happened because of the absence of moral and godly people who would provide a check and balance in regards to that. And, this isn't, our salvation isn't coming on Air Force One. The President of the United States, President Trump, prior to Biden taking the office, he did more for the unborn than the church did. And he stood in opposition to the destruction of children more than the church did.
Mm.
And the church has to stand up and say, we're responsible for this, and own that. And I would also add that when it says to pray for kings and those in authority, that we would live quiet and peaceable lives in all godliness and reverence in Timothy, which is a pastoral epistle. Most pastors, when you ask them, who's your city councilman and your school board members, and by name, and the issues they're dealing with that allow your community to live quiet and peaceable lives in all godliness and reverence, they don't know, because we stepped out of local politics and we deprived the existence of the swamp in D.C., which physically it is a swamp, just like Sacramento, and figuratively it is as well. And if you want to change what ends up in the swamp, you got to go upstream to the source, and the source is always local.
Yeah.
And if churches start to own their communities and participate in the public square, the ecclesia, which is, where you see in Matthew when Jesus says to Peter, upon this rock I will build my ecclesia. He didn't say church. The word ecclesia was a secular term that Jesus co-opted. He didn't say synagogue. He didn't say temple, which was a religious term. He said ecclesia. Ecclesias existed hundreds of years before Jesus had used the term, and it literally means public square. And Tyndale was hung and then burned at the stake for translating that from the Greek into English and contending with a hierarchical, tyrannical system. He was murdered for that. But the idea of an ecclesia, public square, in the Greek culture, when they would gather in their communities in these ecclesias to design laws to allow their people to live together in community, above the door of every ecclesia was two words: isonomia and eleutheria, which is liberty and equality.
Mm.
And the church abdicated the public square under the excuse that, hey, I preach the gospel. Well, the gospel is good news, yes, and we preach the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ, and that we're sinners needing to be saved by grace through faith, and I do that every Sunday. But Jesus didn't say make converts. He said make disciples.
Amen.
And those disciples are people that understand the public square, that the scriptures speak on capitalism and immigration and transportation and all the issues that we deal with in government. Government is not man's idea, it's God's idea, the Noahic covenant. So we have to get back to local politics, participating in the public square for the sake of our community. And this last thought, you commented about our fireside chats. We did a fireside chat. You can go back and look at it, and it's an update on some of the legal issues that our small businesses are dealing with in our county. And you'll be blown away by this, Rick. We had the owner of the pizza cookery. She's a secular Jew. And then we had, I can't remember the name of it. It's another company. But the man who oversees it, his name's Matt. He, by his own admission, was an agnostic at best and an atheist at worst. And because we opened up the doors of our church and stood on behalf of liberty and the right for people to, not have their Fifth Amendment violated, these people started coming to church, and they haven't stopped, and they've given their heart to the Lord.
Wow.
Because we've been contending on their behalf. And
wow.
Galatians 3 says that the law is a school teacher, a guardian, to point us to Christ until faith comes. And when they see us participating in the ecclesia, they want to come to church.
Wow. Rob, so powerful right there. I mean, so much of that. And the whole idea of the public square and the ecclesia being the place we should be leaning into, not running from. I mean, that is the opposite of what we've done for 50 years, and it is the answer to turning this thing around. The church being the ecclesia again, once again leaning into the culture. Godspeak.com is the website, godspeak.com, and you can link from there to the fireside chats. And you're still doing those almost nightly, right?
Yeah, we do them Monday through Friday. I finally started taking weekends off just to get some sanity, but we are up every Monday through Friday.
All right, good stuff, brother. God bless you, man. You are truly feeding not just your flock right there in Thousand Oaks, but the flock across the nation and around the world. We love you, brother. We appreciate you. Come back soon, would you?
I will. And Rick, I'm going to leave you with this, that God made firemen so that police officers could have heroes too. God made you so I could have a hero. You blessed me. You are wonderful. And I just thank the Lord for you and all that you guys do.
Oh, man, right back at you. That's Rob McCoy, Godspeak.com. By the way, featured a lot in our new Biblical Citizenship in Modern America, filmed right there in Rob's church with a fantastic ecclesia in that church. So much enjoyed doing that. Folks, you can get that at our website as well. Start hosting those classes in your living rooms and at your churches.
Amen.
And let's be that ecclesia again. Rob, appreciate you, brother. Have a good one.
Thanks, Rick. Bless you.
Stay with us, folks. We'll be right back with David and Tim Barton.
Hey guys, we want to let you know about a new resource we have here at WallBuilders called The American Story. For years, people have been asking us to do a history book, and we've finally done it. We start with Christopher Columbus and go roughly through Abraham Lincoln, and one of the things that so often we hear today are about the imperfections of America, or how so many people in America that used to be celebrated or honored really aren't good or honorable people. One of the things we acknowledge quickly in the book is that the entire world is full of people who are sinful and need a Savior, because the Bible even tells us that all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And yet what we see through history, and certainly is evident in America, is how a perfect God uses imperfect people and does great things through them. The story of America is not the story of perfect people, but you see time and time again how God got involved in the process and used these imperfect people to do great things that impacted the entire world from America. To find out more, go to wallbuilders.com and check out The American Story.
We're back here on WallBuilders Live. Thanks for staying with us. Thanks to Rob McCoy for joining us as well. Be sure and watch his weekly sermons. I'm telling you, you'll be blessed. Godspeak Calvary Chapel in Thousand Oaks, California, and you can catch their Sunday services are on their YouTube channel, and then also their fireside chats that Rob was talking about Monday through Friday. David, Tim, as usual, he's just got a good balance, perspective on what's going on out there. Just like you said before we went to him, Tim, it's truthful, but it's good discernment and a good focus and a good attitude on how to stay in the fight and continue to influence what's going on around us.
Yeah, and I love the point he made. You joked about the hopium right from the sermon he had, and I think it's such an interesting thought that it's easy at times for Christians to become complacent because we thought, well, we prayed and now we're just going to wait and see for God to do something. And as he pointed out, this was one of the challenges that we saw in Christians leading up to the election is they were content to let God work a miracle, and they were going to sit back and watch God do something instead of recognizing that the vast majority of the time throughout human history, and certainly even throughout Scripture, is God required people to roll up their sleeves and get involved in the process, and then God would use them through that process to do something. Very few occasions where people sat back and just watched the miracles happen. Although, certainly, there was the Red Sea, but even then, God told Moses, right, do something, raise this rod, walk forward. There were things that were still being told to be done in the midst of this, but I really appreciated his perspective that as Christians, we can't sit back and just wait and watch. Now it's time to roll up our sleeves and get the job done.
Tim, that was the same point that struck me about what Rob said. He pointed out that we got ripped off in 4 states, and I think we did. And we've always made the distinction on this program. There's a big difference between the legal aspect of the election and the fraud aspect of the election. The fraud is where we kept saying, all right, where's the proof? Where's the truth? All these claims, you got to prove it in court. But what is not controvertible is that a number of states violated their own state law. So that's, I think, the strongest thing to point to. But as Rob pointed out, Florida did not. Florida is where it used to be kind of a battleground state, and this time Florida was not even close to a battleground state. Why? Because they got in and they worked on their state laws and they cleaned up things and they elected people at the state level that institutionally made a change. This was a clean election in Florida. And so I was reminded of the scripture in Proverbs 24:27 where it talks about how you prepare your fields first and then you build your house. And I think we've been neglecting the preparing of the fields. Even in Texas, we've got something over 20,000 elected officials in Texas from school board, city council, all the way on up. We've not been building a farm team. We keep wanting a president. We keep wanting a Congress with backbone. Where's our farm team to provide that? We've got to get off the national level and start looking at the local level, start preparing the fields, doing that at the state level.
Man, I'm so glad you mentioned the local level. It's so important for us to be engaged there. It's the place that has the most impact on our lives anyway, whether it's our family or our business, our backyard, our schools, all of those things. And it also happens to be the place where it's the easiest. Not that it's easy, but it's easier to make a difference, to have an impact, to get elected to a local office, or to influence those local leaders, or to lead a cause in a local area. So it's designed that way. It's what the founders wanted. That's why it's so important for us to pull power back from the federal government into the states, where it's easier to impact the state than it is the national government, and then from the state level back to the local level, because it's easier to impact the local level. So don't ever think you can't make a difference. Know that you can. We're all about equipping you, inspiring you, giving you the tools that you need to be engaged. That's why we want to challenge you to be a Constitution coach, host classes in your living room, in your home, host them at your church, wherever you can, but get people in the room, get them sitting around talking about these topics of the day, and use our materials, because it's a Joshua Caleb approach. It will encourage people. It'll give them hope for the future. They'll realize they're not alone, and that there are things you really can do to make a difference, and that the system does work if we will work the system. So be sure to become one of our Constitution coaches. Our new program, Biblical Citizenship in Modern America, is now available. You can go to biblicalcitizens.com to sign up there. It's totally free. Host the class for free at your church and in your home. Digital workbooks for everybody, free, totally available to you right now. Use that as the tool so that you can be the catalyst for a restoration of biblical values and constitutional principles right there in your community. Thanks so much for listening today. You've been listening to WallBuilders Live.
We stand undivided.